I am a teacher at Columbine High School. There is a student here with a gun.
He's inside the school shooting at the gun!
Well, I had to do it because somebody had to do something.
After shooting in the theater, I didn't have a plan of whether to die or not.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to our channel, or welcome if you are new. Today's case was suggested and voted on by our members. If you'd like to participate in future case decisions, make sure to join our $5 a month membership, which we will link below. Today's case is a pretty unique one, as the shooter was actually a woman, something that isn't incredibly common in cases such as the ones we cover. Her mental health played a huge role in the attack. So let's just get right into the case, by first going over the life of today's attacker, Jennifer San Marco. Jennifer was born on December 6, 1961, to her parents, Frank and Jeanette, in Brooklyn, New York. Some sources report that as a young girl, Jennifer was quite shy, but friendly. There isn't much to learn in terms of her childhood, but we do know that she eventually attended Brooklyn College and went on to study natural resources management at Rutgers University, though she did not end up graduating. As far as I read, there was nothing in her personal life while growing up that stuck out to anyone as strange or bizarre, which is in stark contrast to her life in her later years. At some point in 1989, Jennifer, now in her late 20s, moved across the country to California. It was there that she cycled through many jobs. She became a prison guard and was described as a good worker. But just 2 days shy of the end of her probationary period, Jennifer quit, giving absolutely no explanation as to why. She then went on to become a dispatcher for the Santa Barbara Police Department, and it's reported that she passed a background check and psychological evaluation in order to get the position. Remember this for the future, because like I stated in the beginning, Jennifer's mental health was a huge factor in this case. Either way, in similar fashion to her previous job, Jennifer decided to quit this one just a few months after starting. It was in 1997 that Jennifer landed a job at the Goleta Postal facility as a clerk. Unlike her previous positions though, Jennifer held this job for quite a while, and she really seemed to like it. She also eventually purchased a condo nearby. Those that worked with Jennifer in this facility recalled that while she could be nice, her behavior grew increasingly odd as time went on. One of her co-workers said that it was night and day with Jennifer's behavior, that you never knew how she was going to act at any given time. It was also noted that she was known to talk to herself, and while one of her co-workers reported that at first, the conversations were normal, as time went on, they became angrier. So much so that those around her began to observe Jennifer seemingly arguing with herself. Jennifer also began exhibiting some other strange behavior, like when she would sometimes come in with lipstick messily smeared across her mouth. Her mood would also shift suddenly. Sometimes all it took was a simple hello for Jennifer to lose her temper and start yelling at those around her. She was also known to randomly spout out racist remarks. For the most part, though, Jennifer appeared harmless, as her co-workers later recalled that she never really directly threatened anyone there. According to someone who worked with her, Jennifer eventually began ignoring her co-workers altogether, not speaking or acknowledging any of them. She apparently still showed up and did her work, though. At home, Jennifer also had some run-ins with her neighbors. One in particular, a woman named Beverly Graham, often got into spats with her. Beverly's boyfriend later came out and said that Jennifer would go outside and sing very loudly, which would prompt arguments between the two women. He later said, she'd stand outside and sing as loud as she could. She'd go on tirades. Beverly would open the door and tell her to shut up. Beverly's brother also later claimed that she had told him about Jennifer, complaining that in addition to the singing, she would also rant loudly outside of the condo building. Many of these incidents would lead to Beverly and Jennifer verbally fighting with one another. According to reports, Beverly came very close to calling 911 on multiple occasions due to Jennifer's erratic behavior. Some even claim that she did make a call at least once, but again, the information varied. However, Beverly's boyfriend later recalled that when they would run into Jennifer in public, she would act as though nothing ever happened between them, politely saying hello as she passed by. Despite this, clearly the two of them did not get along, so keep this in mind as we go throughout the case, as Beverly comes back up later. Back to her work life, Jennifer at one point also got a second job, working in the cafeteria of a local high school. It seems as though this position was short-lived, like many of her previous ones, as it's reported she quit in the year 2000, not too long after starting. She continued to hold her job at the Postal facility, though. Fast forwarding a little bit, it was on February 5th, 2001, that Jennifer's growing problematic behavior escalated even further at work. A few sources report that Jennifer had made a particularly disturbing comment to one of her co-workers, a man named Dexter Shannon. Apparently, she said something about a woman they both knew, who had taken her own life. I couldn't determine exactly what the comment was, but it obviously was concerning enough for Dexter to report it to management. Upon being asked to come into the office, Jennifer began yelling and created a huge scene within the building, a meltdown which many of her co-workers witnessed. Her behavior was so erratic that they called the police on her, who then had to forcibly remove her from the building. It's reported that she was then sent to a psychiatric hospital and was put on a hold for a few days, though details surrounding this are sparse. Jennifer eventually returned back to work, though, and as far as I know, her odd behavior continued. That was until 2003, when another incident occurred. The result was Jennifer having to be taken out of the building by law enforcement once again. Jennifer was soon placed on some sort of psychological disability, which ended her 6-year-long employment at the Postal facility. It's reported that her supervisors later said that it was done in order to preserve Jennifer's safety, not because they believed she would become a threat to others in the workplace. Following this, according to Independent.com, Jennifer began a road trip to the other side of the United States to visit relatives. While driving through New Mexico, it's reported that her car broke down in the small town of Milan or Grants, which are very close to one another. Details surrounding this time are a bit unclear, but it seems as though Jennifer let fate decide that she would make this town her home. She had no connection to the area and knew no one who lived there. Combined, Milan and Grants had just over 11,000 residents in 2003, so it was a pretty small community. Jennifer quickly gained quite the reputation around town, similar to the one she had had in her previous city. There were several instances of her strange demeanor remembered by the residents of Milan and Grants, namely one time that she stripped naked at a gas station, and others where she would kneel and pray in various locations including parking lots and the sides of streets. I also saw that she was caught at least once by the police while driving half naked. Those around her emulated previous comments by people who knew Jennifer, later claiming that she would randomly blurt out racist comments. As time went on, and more people came to know Jennifer, they recalled that she quickly became known around town as a nutcase. Jennifer was said to have harassed various people on numerous occasions, including a woman named Sonia, who worked at the town's municipal office, Milan Village Hall. Sonia reported that at first, Jennifer was a pretty normal person, but that changed after a year or so. Jennifer's behavior began to shift over time and was described as becoming somewhat fixated on Sonia. It got so bad that everyone would warn Sonia when Jennifer was spotted entering the building so that she could hide. Sonia later recalled that Jennifer soon began to refuse any help from the other employees, opting to just stand and stare at the other workers, or leave altogether if Sonia wasn't there that day. A worker later stated, "We weren't sure what she was going to do next. She never got violent with us, but she was pretty rude sometimes. At other times, she was perfectly fine with us and was normal." Someone else in town, a man named Abel, who owned a propane gas company, said that he also began noticing Jennifer's strange behavior. According to him, she would go in to pay her bill when there was no balance. He said that on at least one occasion, after being told she didn't owe anything, she turned to her side, with no one accompanying her, and said, "See, I told you that I already paid it." Sonia also later spoke more about Jennifer, saying that she was also known to go into stores, purchase items, and then immediately throw them away upon exiting the store. Sonia said that she would also throw away the money that was left over after the purchase. I also read that Jennifer did something similar at restaurants, that she would take off after putting in the order, but before receiving her food. She also cut her hair, and those around her later described it as looking like she cut it with a hacksaw. At one point, she apparently shaved her entire head, but had patches of longer hair in various spots. In July of 2004, Jennifer applied for a business license in order to start her own publication, which she named The Racist Press. According to a few sources, her application was denied. NBC News reported that she had a few typo-ridden writings already, in which she spoke about various religions, and also apparently wrote about a conspiracy theory that linked the United States government to the KKK, racist murders, and even the Son of Sam killer. She at one point also reportedly attempted to gain a license to start a cat food company, but this effort was also denied. An article from EastBayTimes.com states that after Jennifer was once again denied, she began to repeatedly show up at the Village Hall offices, each time her physical appearance becoming more unkempt and her overall personality more withdrawn. On one of these visits, Jennifer also apparently loudly accused Sonia of sleeping with someone. This resulted in a police report being filed by the business, accusing Jennifer of verbal harassment against the worker. According to the New York Times, on March 3, 2005, Jennifer made yet another visit to Village Hall. She was reportedly noticeably angry and soon grew irate, which prompted a call to the local police. They headed over, but by the time they got there, Jennifer had already left. Most that knew Jennifer were aware that something wasn't quite right with her. Some had only pleasant experiences to recall when it came to interacting with Jennifer, but that was clearly not always the case. In August of 2005, it's reported that Jennifer made her way to a pawn shop in Grants, New Mexico, and applied to purchase a 9mm Smith & Wesson Model 915 pistol. Surprisingly, despite her very concerning past when it came to mental health, she passed the background check with no problem and was allowed to buy the gun. There was a little bit of a waiting period, but Jennifer ultimately picked the handgun up with no issues. She also visited another shop and was able to purchase ammunition for her new pistol. Neighbors later reported that they witnessed her shooting the gun off in her backyard several times. It was also later said that she had a little area for target practice set up back there. In November of 2005, 2 months before her attack, it's noted that authorities were notified once again about Jennifer's bizarre and unusual behavior. The manager of a mental health clinic, Darlene, claimed that she saw Jennifer all by herself in a post office parking lot, kneeling by her car and seemingly talking to herself. Darlene stated that she approached Jennifer and asked her if everything was okay, to which she replied that her brother and sister, who were with her, always prayed before going in. This came as a shock to Darlene, because like stated before, she reported that Jennifer was by herself at the time. Darlene swiftly called the police, noting that she believed Jennifer was in immediate need of psychological help. Darlene later said, "It seemed like she was acting delusional. I wanted the police to make contact with her and hold her for 24 hours, so they could determine whether she needed a physician." Darlene stuck around for a few minutes, but ended up leaving before police arrived, stating that she assumed they would help Jennifer obtain a mental health evaluation when they got there. The New York Times reports, though, that the police stated they had no record of the call from Darlene. It's reported that nothing came of this situation, which is very unfortunate seeing as what Jennifer went on to do just a few months later. Her mental health only continued to deteriorate. Around this time, Jennifer was also developing a wild conspiracy theory that we will go over a bit later. Since we are about to get into the attack, from here on out, I will be referring to Jennifer by her last name, San Marco. On Monday, January 30th, 2006, San Marco carried out a cold and calculated plan, fueled by her suffering mental state. That morning, it's reported that San Marco grabbed her newly purchased handgun and got into her car before beginning the 12-hour drive from her home in New Mexico to Santa Barbara, the town she previously resided in. Sources claim that she made the drive all at one time, not stopping for large breaks in between. On the evening of the 30th, San Marco, armed with her Smith & Wesson Model 915 handgun, arrived at the condominium building that she lived in prior to moving to New Mexico. Keep in mind, it's not entirely clear what exactly took place, but I will do my best to lay everything out understandably for you. San Marco went there with a clear plan, to take revenge on her former neighbor, with whom she did not get along with, Beverly Graham. It's possible that upon finding the front door locked, she decided to look around the house, eventually making her way to the back. Some articles state that San Marco gained access to the back of the home by climbing over a fence, before discovering that the back sliding door was unlocked. She ultimately made her way inside, and at some point, ran into Beverly, shooting her at least once in the head. Authorities later found several shell casings around the home, but it's unclear if Beverly was actually shot multiple times. Beverly Graham's neighbors later told authorities that they heard what could have been gunshots between 7:15 and 8:15 that night. Authorities didn't discover Beverly's body until the next day, which leads me to believe that her neighbors didn't call the police as a result of the loud noises. After killing Beverly, San Marco left the condo, got back into her car, and began the drive to her former workplace, the Goleta Postal facility. The building's parking lot was fenced off and required identification to get in. San Marco was no longer in possession of what she needed to gain access to the facility, so she waited for another car to enter. When one arrived, she closely followed them and was able to pass through the security gate. After parking her car, San Marco got out and saw an employee in the parking lot. She quickly approached them and at gunpoint demanded they hand over their work badge, which would grant her access into the building. They handed it over, before San Marco instructed them to leave. The employee swiftly departed and was unharmed in the exchange. After this, San Marco noticed another worker in the parking lot, a woman named Z. Fairchild. Unlike her previous encounter with the other worker, San Marco took aim and shot Z in the head, ending her life. Another worker, Malika Higgins, who was nearby, was almost immediately targeted following Z's death. I read that she had just arrived to work, but had come in 2 hours early for her shift so that she could spend more time with her young daughter the next day. San Marco aimed at Malika as well, and reportedly shot her at point-blank range, mortally wounding her. San Marco then fatally shot another woman in the parking lot, Nicola Grant. It's reported that some of the workers inside of the building heard the gunshots and flocked to the windows to see what was going on outside. Many of them reportedly saw as San Marco turned to them and smiled. Upon realizing the severity of the situation, the onlookers fled to any place they could to stay safe. San Marco eventually made her way towards the building, entering it with the badge that she had stolen off of the employee in the parking lot. At the time, it's reported that there were about 80 people working inside of the building. Very unfortunately, while some did get a chance to make their escape, not all who were inside were aware of the approaching danger. Upon entering, San Marco saw and targeted a supervisor, Charlotte Colton, shooting her in the head. She initially survived, and a co-worker in the area dragged her into a nearby room. Sadly, Charlotte did go on to pass away in the hospital a few days later. A man working inside of the building at the time recalled hearing the loud bangs, but that he was unsure if his machine was just malfunctioning. That was, until he heard the screams of those who witnessed the attack firsthand. He said, "People were running out, so we followed them. We didn't know if we were going to be shot." After wounding Charlotte, San Marco advanced into the building and made her way to her former workstation. There, she ran into a woman named Guadalupe, who attempted to run upon seeing San Marco approaching. Sadly, there just wasn't enough time for her to flee, and San Marco fired several shots at her, killing her in the process. Somewhere in the building, a man named Dexter Shannon was busy at work. If you remember back to earlier in the video, Dexter was the one who years before had reported San Marco's comment about their co-worker who committed suicide. Back to the current events, Dexter was wearing headphones at the time and was unfortunately unaware of the threat, as he didn't seem to hear any of the gunshots that had gone off just moments before. San Marco saw and aimed her handgun at Dexter, still oblivious to the danger. Sadly, he was fatally shot at point-blank range, never knowing what happened. It's reported that after Dexter's death, San Marco made the decision to turn the gun on herself. She paused in place, raised her handgun to her head, and fired, ending her life in an instant. Of course, police were dispatched to the scene and were tasked with investigating the deadly shooting at the Postal facility. According to the New York Times, authorities initially believed that the only victims were those in the parking lot, and Charlotte, who was found just inside of the building. That was until a more thorough search was done, and the other two victims, along with the now deceased shooter, located further in the building, were found. The New York Times also states that police were unable to determine if San Marco targeted anyone specific at the facility, or if all who were shot were purely victims of opportunity. Like stated before, it wasn't until the next day that the death of San Marco's former neighbor, Beverly, was connected to the attack. Clearly, San Marco didn't have the best mental health, which certainly played a role in the shooting. Since she also died in the attack, there was no hope of questioning her in order to establish a motive. Instead, investigators had to look elsewhere and ended up searching her home as a result. There, they found writings that suggested San Marco believed she was the victim in a conspiracy theory connected to her former workplace, the Goleta Postal facility, the local police, and a medical facility. According to many sources, the writings were pretty vague, though there isn't a lot of information out there regarding them. Either way, authorities believed that the supposed paranoia that San Marco was dealing with could explain her actions on January 30th, 2006. Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department spokesperson, Sergeant Eric Rainey, spoke on the matter, saying, "There were several different writings that were described to me as kind of just ramblings, not anything specific, but they alluded to a conspiracy. She obviously felt that the post office was out to get her, in one way or another. That establishes as good of a motive for the killings as we can determine at this point." Also in her home, investigators found a check labeled "Will." To them, this suggested that she had drafted and left a will, though again, there isn't much information about this. Due to San Marco's past and based on the things that those who knew her said, investigators believed that the attack could have been, at least in part, racially motivated. After all, she had a known history of making racist comments, but also, at least 6 of her victims were part of a minority. That's about all there is to go over about the case as a whole. So now let's go over the lives lost in the attack. Sadly, for a few of them, I wasn't able to find much information to share with you all, so I apologize for that. Beverly Ann Graham was born on January 24th, 1952, and was 54 years old when she passed away. The only thing I read about her is that her mother recalled she was a very trusting person. Charlotte Colton was 44 years old and was born on February 8th, 1961. Charlotte was originally from Taiwan and had 3 children with her husband. She was described as a very positive person who was a good influence to anyone around her. 37-year-old Z. Vang Fairchild was born on October 29, 1968. She was from Laos and had a rough childhood before being granted asylum in the US. I read that she was a very bubbly person and was always happy to help anyone in need. She left behind a husband and young son. Her husband later wrote in part, "Z's real name was Zeb, which means rock in the Hmong language. She was our rock and the foundation of our lives together here on Earth. She will be missed forever, but will live on through Nick and me. I will follow in her footsteps and bring Nick up just as she would have wished. I will think of her in everything we do." Nicola Michelle Grant was 42 at the time of her death and was born on May 14, 1963. She was married and had 3 children. She was described as thoughtful, kind, and always ready to lend a helping hand to anyone who needed it. 28-year-old Malika M. Brinley Higgins Pineda was born on May 4, 1977. She was a wife and mother to a 10-month-old daughter. Her first wedding anniversary was just the week after she was killed. It's reported that she had worked at the Postal facility for 10 years at this point and was actually in search of a new job. Her co-workers, friends, and family alike all describe Malika as a warm, outgoing, and fun person. She was known to organize events at work, such as potlucks and parties. One co-worker said, "The place could be desolate. Then, Malika would drive into the parking lot and get out of her car, and you knew you were going to have a good night." Dexter Eugene Shannon was born on August 17, 1947, and was 58 years old when he passed away. At the age of 18, Dexter enlisted in the United States Air Force. He ended up meeting his future wife shortly before he went off to fight in the war in Vietnam in 1970. Upon settling back at home, Dexter began working at the Goleta Postal facility, where he stayed faithful for 31 years. He and his wife went on to have 5 kids and many grandchildren, all of whom he absolutely adored. After all, he was described as a family man through and through. Guadalupe Concepcion Swartz was 52 or 53 and was born in 1953. She had worked at the postal facility for about 25 years. I read that she had lost her husband to cancer 3 years prior to her own death and was just starting to come out of the dark period caused by her loss. She also had 2 children, both of whom she loved very much. One of Guadalupe's neighbors later recalled that she was a special lady, kind-hearted, and a good friend. Please take the time to remember the victims. Keep their loved ones in your thoughts as well, as they are certainly still affected by their losses. Thank you to our amazing members, as well as everyone who stuck around to the end of the video. We really appreciate it. Just a reminder, please subscribe to the channel and leave a like and comment on this video if you found it informative. If you'd like to participate in picking the cases we cover, please consider joining our $5 a month membership, linked below. We will see you guys next time, so until then, stay safe.